People don't give a fuck what you say. A lot of people do not understand this. They care about what you do. All of a sudden, you second guess so many obstacles in my path.
I'm gonna hold your hand when I say
you don't think that you gonna make
it
it?
seems like there's something standing in my way. Keep relying on
It
tomorrow.
could change the entire trajectory of your life. You the baseline. The moment that they see you not display the things that you preach, it don't fucking matter. You feel me?
What's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcast with the extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. I'm your host, Demetrius, Thigpen, also known as Meech Speaks, and welcome back to the Meech Speaks Podcast. Now, before we get started with this podcast, don't forget to head on over to your favorite streaming platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, and leave this podcast an honest review because this podcast deserves to grow just as much as we do. So, all right, I got to finally say this. After 6 years of creating content, I have finally upgraded my video quality. Now, I remember when I first started creating content, I was doing this shit off of a gaming headset, a fucking Android app, and a fucking Android phone. And I was kicking heat. You see what I'm saying? And as I got further along, I would just upgrade. You know what I mean? Like, I would upgrade my phone. I would upgrade my computers. You see what I'm saying? I would upgrade the mics. And finally, today, I have officially upgraded the video quality. So if you're watching this, man, like, I'm legitimately recording this and shooting this episode off of a camera. You feel me? Like, this is not off of my phone anymore. This is literally off of a camera. So round of applause to me, man. And I would say that I finally upgraded my video quality when I realized my video quality wasn't enough. You feel me? Like, I finally upgraded the quality when somebody told me, they was like, dude, like, your audio sounds fucking good, bro. Like, I love what you're saying, but I can't watch this shit. And I'm like, bro, it don't fucking matter. You see, it don't fucking matter what the video is. You see what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't even matter. But he told me, he was like, I watch YouTube on my TV. I don't want to watch your fucking phone video on my TV. You feel me? And in that moment right there, I realized, I was like, if you really want to take this shit serious and you really want to go far with it, eventually you're just going to have to upgrade. Eventually, you're just going to have to start taking things serious that you never thought that you would. So with that being said, man, I'm shooting this fucking video on a Sony 6400 camera, still learning it. So if you're good with a camera, please reach out because I'm literally learning. I'm teaching myself as I record. I'm teaching myself as I create. Now, speaking of teaching myself and speaking of upgrading, man, I got to get this off my chest, man, because I don't know who need to hear this, all right? Last week, I had dropped a video, and the video said, and I quote, being good at your job doesn't mean anything if you look like shit in uniform. And I will say that again. Matter of fact, actually, let's watch the video.
Being good at your job does not matter if you look like shit in uniform. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but your physical appearance matters more than you being good at your job. I have seen more Marines get looked over for promotion, not because they were terrible at their job, but because they look like a bag of ass in uniform. Now, I'm not saying that being good at your job does not matter, but that's something I have to learn about you. But your physical appearance speaks volume. And my first impression of you should not be me assuming that you're a piece of shit, simply because you look like one.
And I'm standing 10 toes down on that. You feel me? I'm standing 10 toes down on that particular subject because of the simple fact that it's a truth that we all know, but we don't want to admit it. You feel me? And what I want to clear up before we even get started with this episode, okay, is the simple fact that I'm not saying I want you to look pretty in uniform. I'm not saying that I would rather you solely be good at your job than, let me rephrase that. I'm not saying that I would rather you solely look good in uniform than to be good at your job. You feel me? I'm not saying that I want you to be a 300 PF tier, be a 300 CF tier. You know what I mean? Look all of these other qualities, but be shit at your job. And we really got to, man, dog. We really got to stop getting so fucking emotional with shit when it doesn't align with how we view things. You see what I'm saying? What I'm telling you right now, as we speak, is that people judge immediately, especially in the military, And this is the thing, man, is that we would be fucking lying if we said that we didn't judge. You feel me? We would be lying if we said that we didn't judge. How many times have we walked by a Marine and if they look like shit in uniform, automatically we assume that they're shit? You feel me? Things happen in seconds and we put things in categories in seconds. So if a Marine walks by me and I see him and he's fucked up, you think that I'm saying to myself, oh man, his uniform's messed up, but I bet you he's good at his job. No, I'm saying that he looked like shit and he probably a piece of shit. And that's just the God honest truth. And we hear something like that and we immediately get defensive. We hear something like that and we immediately want to call out and start saying like, bro, you're a toxic leader. This is the reason why a lot of Marines are getting out. This is why retention's low. No, it's not. No, it's not. Me telling you to look like a decent fucking person in uniform, let me rephrase that. Me telling you to take pride in your uniform, let me rephrase that. Me telling you not to look like a bag of ass in uniform is not the reason why Marines are getting out of the Marine Corps. It's not. Motherfuckers find better jobs once they decide to get out. Motherfuckers realize that the military just ain't for them and decide to get out. Motherfuckers utilize the military as a stepping stone and will use that. And once they get to the space that they need to, will get out. Stop trying to fucking throw shit at the wall hoping that it sticks. But this space comes from, not from me from my high horse. I'm not sitting on my high horse, bro. I'm sitting from a space of experience. I can tell you, as a 1341 HE mechanic, I am a maintainer. And I don't think a lot of people know this about me. You feel me? You see me doing McMap, you see me recruiting, you see me doing everything else but my job. And what people don't know is that for the bulk of my career, I have been a HE mechanic. I have been in coveralls. I'm talking about face covered in grease, hands covered in grease, nails, dirt up under there because of what we're working on. I know what it looks like. You feel me? And being in that MOS, you see Marines who are just like, man, dude, like, I'm about to get dirty again, so who gives a fuck? But they're excellent at their job. All right, I'm talking about they could tell you to order an operation on a piece of gear in a second. They could break down a piece of gear in a second. And I remember being a corporal and a sergeant and just being a team leader, section head, and telling my guys and just pulling them off to the side and just saying like, bro, we are in one of the slowest promoting MOSs. We do not have the luxury to be second place. We don't. We don't have the luxury to get a second class PFT. We don't have the luxury to get a second class CFT. We don't have the luxury to fail on a rifle range, bro. We don't have these luxuries because it takes us damn near 2 to 3 years just to get promoted. We don't have this luxury. So you can't be showing up in uniform looking like shit, bro. I remember, man, and I'll never forget this day. I was a sergeant. And I was a damn good sergeant, and my guys were damn fucking good. And I had a young man, and I will never forget how I failed him. Meritorious Corporal Board comes out. He's solid. I pull the guys off to the side, the other corporals. I'm like, who do you want to go on this Meritorious Board? It was unanimous decision. Everybody said put him on the board. I'm talking about the Marine had leadership qualities, knew his fucking job. You see what I'm saying? He was one of those Marines that should have been in a leadership position a long time ago. And when we submitted him, First Sergeant pulls me off to the side. And he's like, yo, Thigpen, man, let me talk to you about the guy that you submitted. I'm like, yeah, what's up? What's going on with him? He said, have you seen him? I said, I see him every day. First Sergeant, I see him every day. What are we talking about? He said, Marine. I just saw that Marine in his Bravos. Now, what we supposed to do with that? And that shit pissed me the fuck off, man. Because I knew exactly what First Sergeant was talking about. The guy was built like a fucking hotel microwave, man. Good at his job. Love him to death, man. Like I'm talking about, that's one of them, he right here. But he built like a hotel microwave. And on top of him being built like that, his physical abilities matched his physical appearance. He wasn't that good. You feel me? And that shit pissed me off, man, because I know that he had good qualities as a leader. I know he had, he knew his job, man. I knew that, bro. And I was mad because I failed him. I wasn't even mad at the guy. I failed him. And I bring that up, man, because we can hoop, holler, and yell about how we want a Marine to be good at their job. But at the end of the day, man, the whole Marine Corps concept exists for a reason. You feel me? We could hoop, holler, and yell and get mad. But the reality is, bro, is that there is a reason why physical appearance matters. And until we finally bridge that gap, we're going to keep fucking the Marines over. We're going to keep being upset. We're going to keep wondering why fucking the Marines are getting out when we know for a fact of what the reason is. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the disconnect. When you hear physical appearance over work performance, you immediately think uniforms. You think, oh, I want somebody to be pretty. You feel me? And I will tell you this right now, dog. Ain't nobody talking about fucking somebody being pretty in uniform. When you hear physical appearance over work performance, you think 300 PFT. You thinking 300 CFT. You are thinking looking cute in uniform. And that is the problem right there. And that's the reason why we can't bridge this gap, bro. Because as soon as you hear that, you automatically assume the extreme. That is not what the fuck I'm talking about. Physical appearance looks just like you working out. You feel me? And the results that show. Physical appearance just looks like you putting yourself together and showing pride in it. And I don't think a lot of people understand, bro, is that when we see you, you feel me? When leader, and that there it is right there. There it is. The disconnect is that we're seeing this from our viewpoint. That's the disconnect right there. We see this from our viewpoint. A lot of us are in the trenches. You feel me? And what matters the most is the job. You feel me? Like the little shit like that you see as physical appearance, that's less little to you. The mission is the biggest thing. And the disconnect comes from the fact that why do I care about physical appearance when I need this piece of gear to get up? I need this gun to get up. I need this job accomplished. I don't give a fuck about those things. And that's the disconnect. And when we have that disconnect, we forget the Marine concept. We forget the whole Marine concept. When we have that disconnect, we find ourselves in situations where we can't put the guy on a fucking board because he's only good at his job. When we have that disconnect, we fall out of standards. And I don't think a lot of people understand that when you finally fall out of standards, that's when it becomes an issue. So now that we understand the disconnect, let's talk about why this is actually important, okay? A lot of people do not understand, man, but just like what I had said previously, first impressions are important. Let me rephrase that. First impressions are last impressions. Let me rephrase that. First impressions are your most important impression. You feel me? Because once again, things happen in seconds. Somebody that you do not know is going to view you when you are not paying attention, and they are going to build their entire impression of you off of that moment right there. You feel me? When you tell a Marine that you want him just to be good at his job, you got to understand, man, like people do not give a fuck about that until it actually matters. I don't know that you're good at your job until I see you doing your job. I don't know that you're a good leader until I see you leading Marines. I don't know that you have great character until I see these things. You want the things that we have. You have to prove these things. The thing about first impressions, let me rephrase that. The thing about physical appearance is that you prove this in that moment. You feel me? When you walk by somebody and they see your physical appearance, they're already assessing things about you that you have not communicated yet. They're looking at your discipline. You feel me? Because we're looking at the discipline factor from the fact that you go to the gym. You see what I'm saying? You do shit that is hard when no one else is looking. We're basing this off of your initiative, that you do things when no one has to tell you. You give a fuck about yourself, or let me rephrase that. You show discipline in the moments where there's no motivation. That's what your physical appearance communicated. Pride. When I see you looking good, bro, I know for a fact that you take pride in how you look. If you take pride in how you look, then you're probably going to take pride in the mission. If you take pride in the mission, then more than likely you're going to take pride in the Marines. These things are already being communicated right out the gate. Accountability. If you are holding yourself accountable, if you give a fuck about how you look, bro, like if you give a fuck about how you look, you are holding yourself accountable. You feel me? And that is a quality in a leader that everybody needs to have, is self-accountability, because you refuse to look like shit. And I cannot stress this, man. Like, you refuse to look like shit. And if you give a fuck about how you look, then you're definitely going to give a fuck about the performance and the work that you put out. That's what your physical appearance communicates immediately. It communicates that immediately. But to be honest with you, for those who still do not understand exactly what the fuck I'm talking about, I dare you, put a fat Marine on a board. A meritorious board comes out. Put that fat Marine that's just good at his job on that board. And when you put him on that board, what I want you to do next is I want you to walk behind him. And as he reports in, I want you to tell the members of the board that, hey, I know he don't look like much, but he's good at his job. He's good at his job. And you tell me how the fuck that goes. You tell me how that plays out for you and the Marine. Physical appearance, man, like, is so important because that is the first thing that I gain from you, or let me rephrase that. That is the first thing that I learn about you before I approve anything. Your physical appearance is so fucking important that that's the reason why either A, I'm going to open up your package to learn more about you, or the reason why I'm about to close it and push it off the desk. Just based off of how you look. And when we finally understand that, man, dude, I'm telling you, we'll start setting the Marines up for success. All right, now speaking of setting up the Marines for success, and this is the part of the episode where I take my notebook and I put it down and I just speak straight from the heart. And I don't think a lot of people understand this, man, and this is the piece that pisses me off the most with people who care more about the job than they actually care about the Marine. And I will say that again, all right, because the ones that really are upset about this, you care more about the job than you actually care about the Marine. Because the reality is that the Marine, all right, your physical appearance, and the reason why some of your Marines fell out of standards and the reason why you're upset about that situation is because you allowed that Marine to fall out of standards. And I'll say that again, you allowed that Marine to fall out of standards. And I'm going to go ahead and just nip this piece in the bud right now before anybody even gets started. Because if you sit there and you say in a leadership position that it is the Marine's responsibility to stay in standards, then you're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong. Because it was your responsibility as well to keep that Marine in standards. Marine only gonna do, the young Marine, the junior Marine only gonna do what he prays for. If he prays for accomplishing the mission, if he's praised for doing the job, let me rephrase that, he's good at the job, do you really think that he gonna give a fuck about anything else? No. And the problem is that the moment that we find a Marine who's good at their job, you see what I'm saying, that's competent at their job, we will work that Marine and we won't say anything else until it fucking matters. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You won't say anything to that Marine until somebody comes up to you and says something about that Marine. And now all of a sudden he's fat. He's unappeasing in uniform. He has an unsightly appearance. But the reality is that you allowed him. You allowed him, man, to get out of standards because you was working him like a fucking dog. Because you benefited from the fact that he was good at his job. You were able to take a step back and be like, oh man, I got this Marine that I know for a fact that's going to accomplish it. Meanwhile, this motherfucker eat like shit. Meanwhile, he got a second-class PFT. Meanwhile, he fucking failing uniform inspections. Meanwhile, the motherfucker self-conscious about putting on his dress uniform because he looked like shit, so he will hope that he will get tasked out on a job so that way he could feel good about himself. Let me rephrase that, so he can get out of this and put on his camis. And the fault really comes back onto the leader. You promised this Marine that you're going to pay him on the back end, but you can't even give him good marks. You see what I'm saying? You promised that you're going to pay him on the back end, but you can't even put him on a meritorious board, man, because he looked like shit. And rather than fucking take ownership of the Marine that's under your charge, you just go ahead and task him out. And you take care of yourself. And you build up your fit rep. And that's the problem right there. It wasn't an issue when he was accomplishing the mission. It wasn't an issue when he was making you look good. It wasn't an issue when he was doing the job that nobody else could fucking do. But now that he's about to get out, now he's fat. Now that senior leadership done came around and they saw him and they brought it up to you. Now he's fat. Marine been fat though. He been fat. He been out of standards. He been like that. But you never brought it up. And he knew that this was happening, but he didn't care because he knew that he was accomplishing the fucking mission. And that's all that matters. And I think, man, the biggest disconnect, man, is that we think mission accomplishment is more important. That's for the organization. I'm just going to be straight up. Mission accomplishment is for the fucking organization. Your physical appearance, that's for the fucking Marine. That's for the fucking Marine. And I say that, man, because at the end of the day, man, nobody is going to give a fuck about how good a Marine is at their job if they look like shit in uniform. Nobody is going to give a fuck about how well this Marine can accomplish the mission if he looks like an eyesore when people come around. You can hoop, holler, and yell and say, oh, well, when we're downrange, that doesn't even matter. Well, some of y'all have never been downrange to begin with. The most that you've ever been on is a fucking UDP. So let's go ahead and get back to what we were talking about. But as we come to a close to this episode, the one thing that I just really want to just communicate is that, man, we just got to take care of the Marines. You feel me? I've said this before, and we definitely talked about this with Schaefer in the last episode, is that taking care of the Marines ain't just sending the guys home when we ain't got shit to do. Taking care of the Marines is holding the Marines to the fucking standard. Because at the end of the day, ain't nobody gonna hold your Marines accountable like you gonna hold your Marines accountable. Let me rephrase that, man, because when you hold your Marines accountable, when you hold your Marines to the standards, you actually give a fuck. You feel me? You give a fuck. And that's really where this comes from, is actually giving a fuck about the guy and not just the mission. Ain't no way that a fucking Marine that graduates from boot camp, goes through MCT, graduates MOS school, and shows up to you, and now that he's under your leadership, he falls out of fucking standards. He falls out of standards. And you know you could have stopped that. You were supposed to make the Marine better, guide him, lead him, and you allowed him to self-destruct. We got to do better as leaders, man.
And just like that, another extraordinary thought left this ordinary mind. I hope you enjoyed this episode half as much as I enjoyed making it. Don't forget to head on over to your favorite streaming platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, and leave this podcast an honest review, because this podcast deserves to grow just as much as we do.